If you prefer to buy the milk in those plastic containers, you've probably seen those big circles on the side. These circles absorb the shock if you drop the milk on the floor, and also give some extra room so the container can expand. That's how you can see if the milk's turned bad without tasting it. A hole in the handle of pots and even frying pans is designed as a holder for spoons if it's large enough. This way, sauce or whatever you stir drops back into the pan. See you Saturday! You hang up and realize you have 2 days before the main family get-together of the year. Your shopping list is ready, so you head to the largest supermarket in town. You follow the list to the letter, grabbing everything you need as fast as possible. The cart is full of fruit, vegetables, dairy, meat, fish, bread. Well done you! 1 hour later, you get back home and proudly hand in the shopping bags to your grandma. She takes out the items one by one and frowns more and more at each of them. Turns out the fish and meat you picked aren't fresh at all, and those bananas and greens won't make it till Saturday either. Grandma says she'll save the day. You make a good snack to not go shopping hungry. Now you won't buy the stuff you don't need. Then you get in the car together to do it all over again. Smart shopping means cruising the perimeter of the store where you can find all the fresh and healthy stuff. Fruits, vegetables, dairy, meat, and fish. They normally reserve the center aisles for junk food, so you decide to skip them altogether. Your first stop is the produce section. Grandma says you should spend the most time here. And it's a good thing you arrived before lunch. Most grocers get fresh produce when they just open, or later in the evening before they close. You reach out for packaged tomatoes, but Gran stops you. Prepackaged fruit and vegetables are usually more expensive. Plus, they don't let you check each item. A good ripe tomato can weigh double as much as an unripe one. It should have smooth and firm skin and smell like a tomato. No! Don't put that poor bruised thing into your cart. Bruises on produce are a perfect breeding ground for bacteria. Try to find firm cucumbers that have no blemishes or soft spots. The best ones are dark green. If you see yellow spots, it means the thing is overly ripe and will likely taste odd. The same goes for peppers. They must be of intense color with no stains. Now turn it upside down and count the bumps. 4 bumps means fewer seeds and better taste. 2 to 3 bumps mean bitter taste. The stem of a fresh pepper is always green, firm, and crispy. Take these potatoes with sprouts out of your cart right now. Go for the firm and smooth ones, without the wrinkled skin, soft dark spots, or cuts. Pick only green lettuce with no holes or brown edges. The brighter its shade of green, the better. Moving on to fruits and berries. Gran explains that a ripe watermelon will come with a dry brown stem. This one with a dark yellow must have been resting on the ground long enough to get sweet. The same's true for melons. The ones with a yellowish bark is sweeter, as it had received enough sunlight by the time they picked it. Check out the stem of the bunch before taking those bananas home. The stem must be green to light yellow and not turning brown. Only take single bananas if you want to eat them right away. They survive longer in clusters. Never judge a mango by its color. Instead, gently squeeze it. A ripe mango will give in a bit, and it will also have a fruity aroma at the stem end. Smaller fruit is normally sweeter, but that rule doesn't work for strawberries. Different sorts come in different sizes, so bigger ones can be yummy too. Their ripening ends once they've been picked up, so go for bright red berries with fresh green leaves. Those would look dry and wilt if they had picked the berries a long time ago. That lemon won't give you much juice. It's pale, which means it's an older one. This firm, unblemished one with smooth skin will be way better. It also feels heavier, and that's a good sign as well. You're shopping for a big event, but otherwise, you'd never buy too much produce at a time. If it's fresh and organic, it won't naturally last too long, and always opt for fruits and veggies that are in season. They'll be less expensive and of better quality. Next stop, honey. This one looks odd to you as it has those crystals at the bottom of the jar, but Grandma explains it's a sign of freshness. It's normal for honey to crystallize when the temperature drops. It's also a good sign it looks opaque. It means it's more natural and healthy, and not pasteurized. You check the list and realize you still need some bread. You already know the best option is the whole grain kind. You pick it up and study the label. Made with whole grains won't do. This one that says, whole wheat flour is good. The fewer ingredients, the better. If you can't pronounce the name of the additive, you don't want it in your bread. It shouldn't have artificial flavors, colors, or preservatives. You lightly press on the bread you just chose. Bingo! It goes back to its original shape, which means it's high quality. If you see your finger mark on it, it could have been previously frozen, or the baking process went wrong. You move towards the canned food section, and Gran jumps in your way. She's sure canned foods are bad for your health, as they contain a huge amount of sodium. You convince her to at least study the labels. You should always pick canned foods that don't have too much salt or sugar in them. The ones preserved in water or their own juice are the healthiest, as they have fewer artificial ingredients in them. You find some tuna packed in olive oil. The package is perfectly closed, so it's all good. You know you should never take a rusty can. It can be dangerous. Okay, looks like you've got everything you need, except for meat and dairy. You know you should always grab those last. They can spoil without a fridge if shopping gets too long. You make some room in your shopping cart to protect your fruit from raw meat juice, just in case. Red meat should be of dark color. Purple, red, and brown are all good. Pork should be the shade of light blushing pink. It should smell good. It can't be pungent in any way. If you see many fibers, it must be some tough meat with a strong flavor. Beef tenderloin won't have any grains because it's super tender. White flecks and streaks of fat throughout the muscle are another sign it's juicy and tender. If you aren't planning to cook meat straight away, pick the one with the latest best before date. You can still eat it safely after that date, but it tastes better before it. Dirty marks within the packaging are a red flag. Someone must have handled it with dirty hands. If the chicken you're about to buy has skin, it should be paler than the flesh, not yellow or light brown. The edges mustn't look dry. The cuts must be smooth and uniformly sized. If it's not butchered well, there might be small joints and bones in your lunch. Any chicken that has been in the container for more than 2 days should better stay on the shelf and not in your cart. Gran picks up a fish and stares it in the eye. She explains a good fish will have protruding ones with shiny black pupils. The skin of fresh fish should be silky, not sticky or dull. Squeeze the fillet. If there's a trace of your finger mark on it, it's no good. The final stop of the day, dairy products. You should reach for the back of the shelf to find the ones with the most distant expiration date. The same rule works for frozen foods, packaged foods, and eggs. Stockers locate the newer ones behind the older items. Grandma recommends choosing pasteurized milk. No raw products will land in your cart today. When milk goes through pasteurization, they heat it up to fight off disease-causing bacteria. It doesn't take away the nutritional value of the product, so no worries about that. When picking the best yogurt, pay attention to the label. The more words you see on it, the better. 3 basic ingredients are enough to make it work. The rest should be preservatives and sugar you don't need. Live and active cultures is something you want to see on the ingredients list. Don't forget to get some cheese.
How about eating a banana with mayo? Dipping pickles in peanut butter? These food combinations do sound pretty wild, but how do they taste? Well, give them a try, and Oreos with mustard might become your favorite dish. Okay, stay with me here. Tomatoes and peanut butter. Put several slices of tomato on a piece of bread and spread some peanut butter over the sandwich. Or just slather a thick layer of peanut butter over a slice of tomato. This taste combination is surprisingly popular with many foodies. Nutella and French fries. Salt tends to enhance flavors. That's why if you dip your French fries in Nutella, the famous hazelnut spread will taste sweeter and nuttier. Yes, the pun was intended. Another way to enjoy your French fries even more is to wash them down with chocolate milk. Banana and bacon. Salty, crispy bacon combined with sweet, carb-heavy banana makes a perfect mix. Put these ingredients on a slice of bread, add some peanut butter, voila! Your perfect sandwich is ready. Pickles and ice cream. Well, I admit this combination might not be just for everyone, but there are foodies who find this unusual mix of salty and sweet, vinegary and milky, strangely alluring. Cheddar cheese and apple pie. These days you can surprise no one by serving sliced cheese together with fresh apples. But since these products get along quite well, why don't you take it one step further? They say the idea of adding cheddar cheese to apple pies first appeared in England. And after that, it's spread all over the world. French fries and honey. If you want to turn your French fries experience into something different and more exciting, honey will do the trick. Its sweet flavor will complement the fast food saltiness. No wonder some restaurants have honey among other dipping options. Banana and mayo. Nope, by no means do I encourage you to squeeze a healthy dollop of mayonnaise on a peeled banana and stuff it into your mouth. Instead, try sandwiching a sliced banana between two pieces of bread and coat it with a bit of mayo. You might be in for a pleasant surprise. Chocolate and chips. This salty-sweet combination tastes amazing. No wonder chocolate-covered chips are a thing, and many brands have already added this mix to their product lines. Burger and jam. These days you can order this combo in most restaurants, and no one will think you're a weirdo. Well, mostly no one. More and more people choose this option over the regular one with ketchup. Popcorn and milk. Some unique individuals replace breakfast cereal with popcorn. They add milk and claim that this dish tastes no worse than its more widespread and popular alternative. Care to try? White chocolate and red caviar. They say this unlikely food combo was created by a famous chef. He was amazed at how the salty caviar softened the sweetness of the white chocolate. If you're a fan of sweet salty tastes, you're going to love it. Peanut butter and pickles. Let's say you aren't too enthusiastic about dipping pickles into sturdy peanut butter. Then try combining these ingredients in a sandwich. In this case, the vinegary flavor of the pickles will dilute the stickiness of the peanut butter. Watermelon and salt. Those who have never tried this taste combination often think that salt rids watermelon of its sweetness. But the truth is quite the opposite. A pinch of salt will only enhance the flavor. Mango and chili pepper. If you're a spicy food lover, this combination might catch your fancy. You can sprinkle some hot chili pepper on a sliced mango and enjoy the burn. Peanut butter and bacon. Remember that banana and bacon combo? It's time to replace the banana with some peanut butter. Its smoothness will contrast with the crispiness of the bacon. Careful, you might get addicted fast. Ice cream and hot sauce. The most effective way to put out the fire caused by spicy food in your mouth is to drink some milk. Then why not step it up a notch? Drizzle some spicy sauce over your vanilla ice cream to please your adventurous soul. Chocolate and avocado. It's not only about adding a bit of chocolate to your avocado toast. You can also make a mouth-watering avocado and chocolate milkshake. Then the buttery texture of avocado will perfectly complement the flavor of chocolate. Burger and peanut butter. Ooh. Burgers with jam are more of a sweetmeat-salty combination. But burgers with peanut butter are a salt with more salt kind of situation. But instead of spreading melted peanut butter all over your burger, you have to add it while making beef patties, and your burgers are bound to become juicier. Oreos and mustard. Those who have tried this food combo promise that the flavors go with each other amazingly well. Scratch away an Oreo cookie frosting and replace it with German mustard. You won't regret it. Peanut butter and mayo. While it's one of the most bizarre combinations you can imagine in a sandwich, it has a long history. People started to mix peanut butter, rich in proteins, and mayo, full of fats, during tough times. But later, the sandwich stuck around once people realized it was actually delicious. Pizza and honey. Hot honey can make an unexpected but undeniably awesome pizza topping. For example, it's a great way to balance the excessive amount of salt coming with, let's say, pepperoni. So, if you cook pizza at home, put some pepperoni and peppers on top of it. Then coat it with honey. You can thank me later. Olive oil and ice cream. To get a mega delicious salty sweet combo, sprinkle some olive oil and a bit of sea salt on the top of your vanilla ice cream. Really, go for it. Peanut butter and sriracha. Yet another unexpected combination of two seemingly incompatible ingredients. But in fact, the sweet aftertaste of sriracha will make the sticky peanut butter taste more interesting, and the butter, in turn, will take the edge off the sriracha's spiciness. green apples, and salsa. You might have tried mangoes or pineapples mixed with salsa sauce, but then why should it be any different with green apples? Their slightly sour taste is perfect for spicy dishes. It does offset some heat, but at the same time, their flavor adds a strong and a bit bitter taste to the mix. Strawberries and balsamic. This is a tried-and-true Italian combination that works amazingly well. The savoriness of the vinegar makes strawberries taste sweeter. It also complements their juicy nature. Watermelon and feta. No classic Greek salad can go without feta, but this cheese can taste no worse when you combine it with fruit, watermelon in particular. The dense structure and saltiness of feta will add extra flavor to the juicy red goodness. Peanut butter, jelly, and goldfish crackers sandwich. Now, peanut butter and jam have long been a classic, but why goldfish crackers? True foodies know that this component fills in all the remaining gaps. Your sandwich gets a satisfying crunch. It becomes more savory, and the crackers are just salty enough to balance the sweetness of the jelly. Basil and strawberry. I've already mentioned the benefits of mixing strawberries with balsamic vinegar, but strawberries and basil are just as good. You can test this combination while making lemonades and other drinks. Basil and strawberry frozen yogurt taste just as delicious. Pickle brine and chicken. Cooking chicken in pickle brine helps keep the meat juicy. At the same time, this method preserves the natural flavor of poultry meat. Another benefit? You don't need to use salt in the process. The brine is already salty enough. Hummus and dried cranberries. After dipping your cracker in hummus, top it with several dried cranberries. They make a world of difference by adding a tiny bit of tang. So, Alexander the Great, one of the most famous figures in ancient history, was apparently a big fan of one summer treat beloved by many to this day. Marco Polo, the Italian explorer and writer, is said to have brought back from Asia a recipe resembling sorbet, a frozen dessert made by mixing sugar-sweetened water with different types of flavoring. This dessert, which was later named cream ice, was a frequent treat at the court of Charles I of England in the 17th century. In France, it was Catherine de' Medici who introduced the beloved frozen dessert soon after she married Henry II. The frozen treat became available for the general public somewhere in the 1660s, when a Sicilian man blended milk, cream, butter, and eggs at Café Procope, the first known café in Paris. Thomas Jefferson himself had a preferred recipe for ice cream, which took a staggering 18 steps to complete. Ice cream has become so important in popular culture that it even has its own laws and regulations to accompany it, to make sure ice cream is always produced with its certain levels of quality. Not every frozen dessert you see out there is, in fact, ice cream. To be commercialized under this name, the Icy Delight needs to contain a minimum of 10% dairy milk fat and mustn't weigh less than 4.5 pounds per gallon. Genuine ice cream doesn't actually need to be too fluffy. In technical terms, that means it must have no more than 100% overrun. So, to get to that specific texture we've all come to know and love, the ice cream base needs to be sufficiently whipped, but only to a certain percentage. Specifically, for every gallon of ice cream base, the end products must not exceed 2 gallons after whipping. Your favorite summer dessert can yet again be broken down into many other subcategories, like reduced fat ice cream, low-fat ice cream, or non-fat ice cream, based on, what do you think, fat percentage. To have a solid idea of what you're ordering each time, it's best to look at the nutritional information of each product. One interesting type of frozen dessert is gelato. Although it literally translates to ice cream in Italian, there are differences between the two again, based on regulations on milk fat content. Gelato normally has less milk fat than ice cream officially should have, but since it has a low overrun, about 20 to 30%, the end result is still dense and rich in texture. The Italians also mention that gelato shouldn't have less than 3.5% of fat. If this doesn't seem complicated enough, the French also bring their own twist to the dessert. French ice cream, also known as frozen custard, apart from the standard ingredients, also needs to have eggs added to the mixture, with no less than 1.4% egg yolk. You've probably mislabeled many other food items, like say raspberries, as they're actually a member of the rose family, along with cherries, apricots, plums, pears, apples, peaches, or blackberries. They are added to this category based on their flowers. They bloom in 5 equal petals arranged around a central core. Bananas are considered berries, while strawberries aren't since they belong to the same rose family. We also share about 50% of our DNA with bananas, which explains why both bananas and certain attractive people can both have appeal. Another common misconception: white chocolate isn't actually chocolate since it doesn't contain any chocolate solids. It's made only from a mixture of sugar, milk products, vanilla, lecithin, and cocoa butter. Parents all over the world don't try to convince their kids to eat broccoli for no reason. On a calorie-by-calorie basis, it turns out that broccoli has nearly as much protein in it as a steak. Now, I'm not convinced parents actually know that, but given the low fat content, broccoli has many other health benefits as opposed to meat. We now see it as the mandatory companion for fries, but at some point in time, ketchup was actually considered to have healing properties. In the 1880s, a doctor based in Ohio indicated that tomatoes could help treat digestive issues, publishing a ketchup-like formula that was later transformed into a pill. Hey, you want to have a pill with those fries? Speaking of French fries, it turns out one of the most popular side dishes in the world isn't actually French. Potatoes served this way actually originated in Belgium, but they're called that because of how they're cut. And maybe also because the name Brussels sprouts was already taken. I'm almost certain there's a jar of peanut butter somewhere in your cupboard, but I'll bet you didn't know how valuable it actually was. And I'm not talking about peanut butter and jelly sandwiches. Studies have shown that Americans go through enough peanut butter to coat the floor of the Grand Canyon each year. Just to be a bit more precise here, that's about 500 million pounds. Hey, if somebody did that on YouTube, I'd watch. The pink coloring of salmon isn't always like that by default. Wild salmon is pink due to a large amount of shrimp they consume natively. Farm-raised salmon, however, is generally white, so producers need to add plant-based pigments to get that light pink hue. Carrots weren't originally orange either. The red-yellow tint we are now familiar with comes from a genetic mutation of the well-known vegetable that occurred somewhere in the 16th century. Carrots were initially white or purple. Just like you add ketchup to the side of fries, you're most likely having a dab of wasabi with every plate of sushi. Well, it's most certainly dyed horseradish. The Japanese alternative to horseradish is quite expensive. That's why 99% of restaurants in the US actually use regular horseradish instead. You may see them packed together in the supermarket, but red, green, and yellow peppers aren't actually the same vegetable. You'd need different types of seeds to be able to grow them individually, as they're each their own type of plant species. Did you know 1 in 4 hazelnuts ends up in a Nutella jar? The creamy spread is so popular that scientists are looking into ways to grow hazelnuts in labs to counteract the global shortage. That's something to think about when you ask for an extra topping. Sure, there's an expiration date on each bottle of water, but the water itself doesn't actually expire. The date mentioned there is, in fact, for the bottle itself, since the plastic can eventually leak harmful substances into the water. Ever wondered why airplane food sometimes tastes bland? The chef may not always be to blame. The altitude you're flying at has some effects on your body chemistry, making you taste things differently. You've added it to a salad at least once, but you may be surprised to know that cilantro and coriander are not in fact the same thing. Coriander is what the dried seeds are called, while the leaves and the stems go by cilantro. So now you know. For all the fruit lovers out there, scientists came up with a fruit salad tree. Yep, that's right, a tree that can grow different types of fruit at the same time. They were developed in Australia and can support up to 6 different types of fruit. There's a stone fruit variation that features peaches, plums, nectarines, apricots, and peachcots, and a citrus variation for those who prefer lemons, limes, mandarins, oranges, or even tangelos, pomelos, and grapefruits. You most likely avoid it because it can give you bad breath. But garlic is considered one of the most nutrient-dense foods out there. A single clove of garlic can contain 2% of your vitamin B6 for the whole day. Studies have shown that the chemical that gives garlic its distinctive flavor, called allicin, is good for your health. The only type of food that never spoils when stored properly is honey, or at least the only one we've discovered so far. That's because it contains a high amount of sugar and has a low moisture content. An enzyme created by bees also helps do the trick, as it can suppress any bacterial growth. Of course, if you store your honey the wrong way and expose it to additional moisture, it can go bad. But honey that is sealed and stored correctly technically has no expiration date. Now, if you're just starting out with your cooking skills, you'll be pleased to know mushrooms can't be overcooked. That's because they contain a polymer called chitin. This chemical allows them to remain tender even if you cook them from a few minutes to up to an hour. Hey, just add some butter and garlic. Nobody will ever know.
Why do you think right and left matter when it comes to headphones? The sound moves really slowly. The echo is a good example. Try to shout at a distant building to hear your voice bouncing back at you with a slight delay. The sounds move slowly enough so the brain can detect time differences between the sound that arrives at your right and left ear, even if the difference is minimal, like 10 microseconds. This is something we know as the interaural time difference. If your friend speaks on your right, your brain knows the sound is coming from that side because it takes a little bit longer for the same sound to get to your left ear. Because of this, stereo music gives the illusion the sound comes from different directions, and headphones boost that illusion as they bring the music directly to your ears. If your earphones are reversed, sounds from the front will sound like they're coming from the back, and vice versa. You won't see a big difference with mono audio, but with backward stereo sound, watching movies will certainly be a bit disconcerting. Have you ever wondered how wireless charging works? Electrons are pretty clever. If you push them along a wire, you get electricity. Coiling that wire gets you a magnetic field, which is the reason why electric motors have their push. Power is induced in the second coil when you place the coil close to another with a shared iron core to direct the magnetism, and this is how transformers change voltages. Suppose you pulse electrons through the coil and place the other coil a bit away. In that case, you can put the emitter in a charging pad, whereas the receiving antenna is in a phone. Not just your phone needs to be within range for this to work. There's a spot where you can take a dive between two continents. It's Silfra, near Iceland, a crack formed between two continents because two tectonic plates constantly pull apart. It's a geological wonder and a popular spot many adventure seekers put on their bucket lists. In some spots, the space is so narrow you can touch Europe and North America at once. Giraffes don't actually sleep only half an hour. It's just a myth many people still believe. In reality, they spend around 4.5 hours sleeping. And that's not unusual for most of the active animals during daylight. And giraffes mainly lay down to sleep for shorter periods of time, about 11 minutes at a time. How come leftover pizza has such a good taste? Just a single night in the fridge gives the pizza some satisfying flavor. It keeps the structure when it's not hot anymore. The tomato layer doesn't allow fat in the cheese topping to seep through the dough base, and the temperature of the food we eat also affects our taste perception. Cold food has less intense flavors in general. We have heat-sensitive channels in our bitter and sweet taste receptors. And if the temperature is between 60 and 95 degrees Fahrenheit, they open wide, which sets off a chain reaction and sends strong signals to our brain. And if the temperatures are lower, these channels will barely open, which means signals will also weaken. The temperature doesn't affect sour and salty taste receptors, so cold pizza can seem saltier and tastier. One more for foodies. Did you know a couple of studies have confirmed triangular sandwiches taste better than those with a rectangular shape? It looks like triangles give us more sandwich filling per single bite. A triangular sandwich has two 45-degree corners. This way, you can bite further towards the middle in just 2 bites. And the center often contains more filling. And right after that, there's an ideal, crustless third bite since you cover the space left in the middle. This one's got me hungry. Shoes designed back in the late 14th and early 15th centuries could be up to 2 feet long. People used to wear pointed shoes, especially in the 12th century. And a couple of centuries later, they remained popular, but eventually became longer. Manufacturers filled the toes of these shoes with hair, moss, wool, or even grass. A narwhal tusk is not a tusk, but an inside-out tooth. These creatures are in the category of whales, and unlike most other whales, they have a large tusk, or better yet, a tooth. Kind of like some sort of skin, because it has so many sensory nerve endings. Wind on Mars is audible, which means you can hear it. With sensors on the NASA InSight lander on the Martian surface, researchers got their first recorded sounds of winds on Mars through vibrations. But even though the sound of Martian winds is at a decibel level within human range, you still need the help of some bass-heavy headphones for this. The world record for the longest breath someone held underwater is about 24 minutes. Without training, an average human could probably stay around 90 seconds underwater before going out to take a breath. But in 2016, a professional freediver, Alex Segura Vendro, managed to set the insane record for breath holding. Did you know butterflies don't taste their food the way we do, but with their feet? When a butterfly comes to a plant where they want to eat, they use the sensors on their feet to tell if the plant they're standing on is edible. And the receptors they have on their legs are 200 times stronger than our taste buds. A similar way we use fingerprints, you can identify lions through their whisker patterns. Each of us has unique fingerprints. In the same way, lions have a whisker pattern that is unique to their nose. If you're unsure if the eggs in your fridge are old or fresh, just fill a bowl with water and place them inside. If they float, they're old. And if they sink, it means you have fresh eggs, so you're good to go. Although many people still believe it, when you touch a butterfly's wing, the animal won't lose its ability to fly. Not that you should try to do it, but even if you accidentally do, a butterfly will still be fine. There are scales on their wings. If you touch them, some of them could shed off. But that's what happens naturally too, not just when they scratch something with their wings. It can help them in difficult situations, for example, when trying to escape from spiderwebs. Two parts of the human body don't have blood vessels: cartilage and the cornea. And the cornea covers the pupil and some other parts of your eye. How come our skin becomes wrinkly after some time in the water? Even after 5 to 10 minutes in the bathtub, you can notice small wrinkles forming on your feet and hands. And this is probably our body's way of getting a grip in slippery conditions. The interesting thing is that our skin wrinkles similarly to the shape of river drainage systems. Although some cat owners hope for different, most of the time, cats don't respond when hearing their name is not because they don't recognize it, but because they don't feel like responding. These foxy creatures mostly do what they prefer at that moment, so they'll stop ignoring you when they think they're supposed to. Speaking of our cute purring pets, why do you think many domestic cats have white paws? During the whole process of their domestication, which started about 10,000 years ago, people bred together the tamest moggies to get friendlier animals. And one of the consequences of that is white flashes on paws. Clouds certainly look fluffy and light, but in reality, they're really heavy. The average cumulus cloud, that nice white one you see on a sunny day, has a weight of an incredible 1.1 million pounds.
Over 100 years ago, an 11-year-old boy left his drink on a porch during a cold night. The glass was filled with powdered soda dissolved in water and a stirring stick to mix it up. 20 years later, Frank Epperson, that very forgetful boy, presented his accidental invention, the popsicle, in a California park. There's no record of the original popsicle flavor, but among the very first were cherry, the most popular one, lemon, orange, banana, watermelon, grape, and even root beer. Chocolate chip cookies are somewhat younger than popsicles, having been invented in the 1930s. Ruth Wakefield, the owner of a popular restaurant named the Toll House Inn, is considered to be the inventor of these scrumptious cookies. There are various stories behind this invention. One story claims that Ruth ran out of baker's chocolate and decided to replace it with some basic semi-sweet chocolate, expecting it would melt completely. But it didn't. Another story says some chocolate just accidentally fell into the batter. Ruth denied the accidental origin of her cookies, claiming that it was all done deliberately. There are many legends behind the creation of the potato chip. One claims they were invented in 1853 by a chef at a luxurious New York restaurant. French fries were one of the specials at this restaurant, and people seemed to love them. But there was one customer who wasn't satisfied with the quality, complaining they were too thick. When the chef, George Crumb, not crummy at all, cooked thinner French fries, the picky customer complained again. George deliberately made his next batch of fries paper thin. These fries were so thin, it was impossible to eat them with cutlery. Surprisingly, the finicky eater loved the dish. The chips recipe spread, and within a few decades, potato chips could be found in all the American grocery stores, turning from a hot dish to a fast snack. Worcestershire sauce is another product that wasn't invented deliberately. Two English chemists, John Willie Lee and William Henry Perrins, simply forgot about some barrels in the pharmacy basement for a couple of years. The first mixture they had made was totally inedible due to super strong flavor. But when they forgot some barrel of the mixture in the basement, it became fermented. When the chemists rediscovered the barrels and were curious to try it, they found that the taste had mellowed. This condiment is now used to intensify even those dishes that originally didn't have it. For example, chili con carne. Worcestershire sauce is part of the fifth flavor, umami, or savoriness, which explains its rich taste. Tofu, or bean curd, was invented centuries ago. One of its origin theories is that tofu was first created by a Chinese prince. Another theory claims that tofu appeared as a result of mixing boiled ground beans and sea salt. The salt was quite impure and probably contained calcium and magnesium. These ingredients let the bean mixture produce its curd-like consistency. One more legend says that some nigiri, a sort of evaporated sea salt, was accidentally dropped into soy milk. Today, doctors tell you to stay away from Coca-Cola, but it was surprisingly invented by John Pemberton, who had a medical degree and was a pharmacist. Pemberton's French wine coca was initially used as a remedy for severe pains, headache, and as a nerve tonic. In 1886, a prohibition law was introduced, and John had to change the recipe to remove the alcohol. One thing was left unchanged though, the cola nut that gave the drink its trademark flavor. Some legends say that John only accidentally added carbonated water to the new recipe, but in fact, he knew exactly what he wanted to do. Pemberton thought bubbles were a savory alternative to alcohol. John's Cola is definitely the Coke precursor, but today's drink differs from the original Pemberton's recipe. The sandwich was invented by accident too. Back in the 1700s, John Montagu, the 4th Earl of Sandwich, ordered his valet to make him a simple dish that could be eaten with no cutlery at all. He asked the valet to tuck some meat in between 2 loaves of bread. Lord Sandwich was particularly addicted to playing cards, and this dish let him eat without stopping the game. The cards didn't get greasy either. People started asking to bring the same as sandwich to their games, and soon the dish had its common name. The tomato ketchup we eat today is such a modified version that it actually has nothing to do with original ketchup recipe. You can trace its roots back to the 17th century, when the Chinese mixed pickled fish and spices, calling it a word that sounded a bit like ketchup, and which meant the brine of pickled fish. The English first tried this sauce about 100 years later. The British version featured mushrooms, shallots, and even walnuts. Later, the word ketchup changed its meaning and could be used for any dark-colored sauce. The first tomato ketchup had anchovies among its ingredients, which hints back to its relation to the Chinese fish sauce. Nachos aren't some ancient Mexican food. They were invented less than 100 years ago. Ignacio Anaya, nicknamed Nacho, is said to have invented this dish in the 1940s. Ignacio was a chef, and one day a regular customer asked if Ignacio could bring her and her 3 friends something different as a snack. He saw how hungry the ladies were and decided to cook something quick for them. He had to improvise using available ingredients. So, he grabbed some fried tortillas, grated loads of cheese on top of them, and heated the dish from above. To make the dish more savory, he added some jalapeno peppers on top. The very regular customer asked the name of the unusual snack. Ignacio didn't think long and said, "Nachos Special." Cheese puffs used to be a waste product in the 1930s. Edward Wilson noticed some oozing corn in one of the machines at a factory that produced flake food for animals. Those ribbons seemed interesting, so Edward decided to take them home and try to season them. He also noticed that the puffy corn hardened if it was exposed to air. The experiment turned out to be a success, so it was later developed into a world-famous snack. Now, instant noodles weren't invented by mistake, but there were several mistakes while inventing them. The main idea was to create something with a long shelf life. After several unsuccessful attempts, Momofuku Ando invented the method of preserving the noodles. They were processed in various ways, like steamed, dehydrated, fried in hot oil, and seasoned. And instant noodles used to be a luxury product, since they cost way more than the fresh noodles everyone was used to. Another product that was invented unwittingly is yogurt. It first appeared in Central Asia thousands of years ago. Some herders stored milk in a place with an abundance of bacteria without knowing it. The milk was fermented, and it resulted in a thicker texture and flavor change. One of the herders wasn't scared of that kind of dish and tried it. Nothing bad happened to him, so other people started eating it too. Today, pink lemonade has that nice color because of grape juice or added colorants. But there are two legends of how it was invented, and both feature circus workers. The first story alleges that Henry Allott, who worked in a circus, unwittingly dropped a few red cinnamon candies in the lemonade, which gave it that vibrant pink color. The other story is gross. It claims that circus worker Pete Conklin one day ran out of water for lemonade and instead used the water from the tub where one of his colleagues had washed her red stockings. The color of the pants turned the water pink. Pete added some sugar, slices of lemon, and acid. He called it strawberry lemonade. The customers liked it a lot, and his sales doubled. Yes, the people were panting for the stuff. The tarte tatin, which is a caramelized upside-down version of an apple pie, was cooked for the very first time by mistake. Two sisters, Stephanie and Carolyn Tatin, ran a hotel in the 1800s. One day, Stephanie wanted to cook a simple apple pie, but she stewed the apples in butter for too long. To conceal her mistake, she put the crust on top of the apples and put it in the oven. When she took the pie out of the oven, she noticed several burn marks. It was a bad cooking day. She didn't want the guests to notice, so she flipped the pie over and presented it as a brand new recipe. Surprisingly, the guests just loved the pie, which soon became their signature dessert. Okay, gotta go. I'm really hungry.
Flies are everywhere we go, literally. It's believed that flies originated in Asia, but these days, they live everywhere people live, only excluding Antarctica and maybe a couple of islands. Flies have traveled the oceans following humans, but they never go anywhere alone. In the wilderness and deserts where humans are absent, you won't find any flies. We know them well, but we all have that unanswered question about flies. Why do flies rub their limbs? Turns out, they just clean them. It's this simple. A fly has hair all over its body. The hairs on the limbs serve as detectors for flying, finding food, and doing whatever else the fly business is. They have to keep their limbs clean at all times. So, they just rub them every time they get a chance. Their limbs are sensitive, and they serve more than one purpose. Apparently, the limbs have taste receptors, so the flies can taste with their feet. They can land on their potential meal and wander around it, giving it a good taste before consuming it. Flies can't chew, so they're on an all-liquid diet and drink their food. If the food they have picked as their next meal is solid, they have a special ritual to make it edible. A fly regurgitates digestive juices on their soon-to-be food, and those juices break it into the smallest pieces that can be drunk. Also, spitting out those juices frees up space in their stomachs for new food. Quite often, flies sit on our food. They can appear harmless, but it's not exactly true. First, remember that they spill out those juices onto your food, which is already gross enough. But there's more. You have to keep in mind that flies land everywhere, and it's not always flowers, but all the gross stuff as well. And flies especially like that said gross stuff, like rotting foods, dumpsters, and even worse. So, their limbs collect all the germs and microbes from those places. When a fly lands on your food, it transfers those germs to your meal. Some of the microbes they transfer can even cause diseases like cholera and typhoid. There was even an experiment once made to demonstrate how it works. There were two bowls. One contained a red powder of some kind of spice, and the other bowl had white rice in it. Flies were let in, and they would migrate from the spice bowl to the rice bowl and back. Soon enough, rice got covered with red spice. Now, replace harmless spice with something grosser, and rice with your dinner. So, you should always cover your food to make sure some fly doesn't take a walk on it and step and spit all over it. If you're eating, make sure you swat them away. But don't worry if some annoying fly manages to sit on your sandwich for a second before you kick it out. No need to throw the sandwich out. If you acted fast, then you're safe. Also, experts say that an average healthy human has a strong enough immune system to repel parasites. Even though flies are gross and annoying, bugging around and tickling you with their limbs, they do serve some good. They're responsible for pollinating flowers. They collect nectar from them, which gets stuck to their hair on their bodies, and then they pollinate the next flower when landing on it. Also, if flies didn't exist, our planet would be even dirtier. Flies recycle some of the human waste. Flies are also an important part of the ecosystem since they're food for birds, spiders, lizards, frogs, and many more. Without flies, they'd all go extinct. Apart from flies having the superpower of tasting with their feet, there are other interesting facts about them too. They can walk on both horizontal and vertical surfaces, and even upside down. They can do it because each one of a fly's feet has two pads with tiny hair. And those hairs produce a glue-like substance that allows flies to have an excellent grip. Flies have unique eyes, which have a large complex of 3,000 to 6,000 simpler eyes within each of the two compound eyes. A fly's eyes don't move, but its vision is nearly 360 degrees. They can see behind their back, so wherever you are, a fly definitely sees you, and every other danger with one or a few of their thousands of monitors. In addition to the two compound eyes, flies also have three simple eyes located on their foreheads, which serve as a compass and allow a fly to navigate. They also have an amazing reaction time. Ever wondered why it's so hard to swat a fly? Well, to a fly, we're sloths. That's because they see things in slow motion compared to us. Species have different perceptions of speed. The speed we see will be twice faster for a turtle, and it will be 4 times slower for a fly. Turn a video on at 0.25 times speed and imagine someone approaching you with this speed. Well, that's how a fly sees you. So yes, it has enough time to escape. A fly has just one set of wings. But in addition to their pair of wings, they also have so-called halters, which allow them to take off fast. Millions of years ago, halters were serving as a second pair of wings. Now they help to take off and also to balance the air. If a fly loses one of the halters, it'll start flying in circles. And if both of them go missing, it won't be able to fly anymore at all. Also, even though their wings beat up to 1,000 times per minute, they're also very slow flyers, only reaching the speed of 4.5 miles per hour. If a fly lives in an urban area with enough people and garbage around, it doesn't fly far away from the place of residence, only having a territory of a bit over 3,200 feet. Rural flies are far more explorative, and they can fly away up to 7 miles at a time. A fly doesn't live long. Its lifetime is just around 30 days. But during this time, they lay from 500 to 800 eggs each on average. But it's not 1,000 at once, it's several goes throughout their life, with 75 to 100 eggs at once. The eggs hatch within 24 hours, and it takes a week in total for an egg to turn into a grown fly, and then the cycle continues. In colder climates, this process can take twice as long. A timber fly is the biggest fly species, which lives in Central and South America. They can grow up to 3.15 inches. Also, flies have beds, or more like their favorite spot to stay and sleep. They have a comfy place, somewhere close to their source of food, and they come there to rest at night. If you ever had your house flooded with flies, here are a few tips for you to reduce their population. First, it's important to understand what they're attracted to. They're attracted to other flies, and even to the smell of flies living there. And flies have an amazing sense of smell. So, if you hosted even one fly, expect to get more guests. If you have any traces of flies, like fly specks, they'll find you too. Make sure to wash your walls and surfaces. Next, flies love garbage and rotting produce. They lay eggs in rotten food and meat, so make sure to keep your food in the fridge, cover it, and keep the trash in tightly sealed containers. And of course, take out the trash regularly. Flies have a sweet tooth, or more like a sweet foot, since they taste with their feet, and they love syrup and other sugary liquids. They're also fond of soda and vinegar, so make sure to keep those stored and always wipe after yourself if you spill something. Lastly, they like to hide and live in dirty and leaky drains. They eat the bacteria from there, so always clear your drains and repair any leaks right away. Also, it'll help to seal all the cracks in your floor, ceiling, and walls if you have any. That's one of their ways to get into the house. Is this safe to eat? We sometimes see strange dots on our potatoes and wonder if we should just throw them away. Here are 10 eat or toss facts. Did you know that every year 119 billion pounds of food is wasted only in the United States? To put it in perspective, this number means nearly 40% of all food in America is wasted. People throw away food if they don't have confidence in the ingredients. They're being cautious, and it makes sense. But what if the food is safe to eat and only looks weird? The first item on the list is beef. When it comes to meat, people naturally get extra cautious. Imagine you buy some raw beef in the store. Later on, you realize it's got some brown spots. If you toss it immediately, hear me out. This is normal. In fact, you can see brown layers also inside the beef. Bright red color equals fresh meat, huh? Not necessarily. When the meat is first cut, it's maroon. If the meat is quickly vacuum packaged, it will keep that shade. But if the meat is exposed to air for like 15 minutes, then oxygen will cause a change in the look to red. The redness can turn brown when the biochemical reaction starts. This can take a few hours. Workers at the grocery stores grind the meat several times a day to achieve that bright red color because they know consumers are cautious about maroon-looking beef. If the beef is wrapped in an oxygen-permeable plastic, it turns bright red after exposure to oxygen. As long as the meat smells and feels fresh, and if it's been stored properly, it should be safe to eat. Have you ever come across dark lines under a shrimp shell? This one has a similar story to beef. Black lines on your shrimp's flesh are related to a natural phenomenon. They gradually occur after shrimps are taken from the water. Meat is exposed to oxygen, and the blackness gets more visible over time. Here also, the pattern of the animal itself can be a factor. These black lines can be a naturally occurring discoloration on the shrimp. Think of cats. They also have different color patterns, but they're the same in terms of species. Next time, you can conduct a mini experiment in your kitchen. Put a couple of shrimps side by side and observe the mild differences in the shrimp's color patterns. Shrimp will have a distinct bad odor when it's no longer edible, so if it smells and tastes fresh, don't toss it. Should you eat moldy yogurt? That green substance on the surface doesn't look appealing at all. But if you scoop it out, you seem to have clean yogurt underneath. The short answer is toss it. The mold could be seen on the top only, but it has probably gone deep. Not to mention that it'll taste bad. Many molds are harmless, but some produce toxic substances. Green mold is a type of penicillium. Does this word sound familiar? That's the same type of mold used in the antibiotic penicillin. Don't get too excited. Eating moldy yogurt won't magically cure bacterial infections. It only spoils your dairy products. In 2013, there was an outbreak related to one line of yogurts. The company handed the products to stores as usual. After some time, they received customer complaints. They said that the yogurt looked like yogurt soup and tasted really old. Turns out that a type of fungus probably released some carbon dioxide. It made the product fizzy and bloating. Ugh. The company and another independent scientist both said that this fungus in question wasn't usually harmful to people. Yet, more than 200 people reported becoming affected by it. So, these sorts of things can still happen. You should trust your spidey sense. If you've ever been lucky enough to see some mold in a freshly opened package, reach out to the manufacturer. You'll potentially save others from facing the same scenery by notifying the company about a systemic issue and preventing potential future product waste. Plus, the company probably wants to make amends and either reimburse your sad yogurt with a happy one, or better, they'll give you coupons for free products. Why do avocados sometimes have brown dots inside? Technically, it's edible, but you might not want to eat it. Avocados are a source of many vitamins like C, E, K, and B6, as well as healthy stuff like magnesium, potassium, and more. The avocado works hard to become such a health storage. Nutrients, water, and sugars wander around this fruit. Yes, technically, avocado is classified as a fruit. Anyway, avocados have their own transport channels, like veins. These channels are normally invisible to us. Until something goes out of the ordinary, the avocado may be stored in too cold temperatures for a longer time than it should. As a result, the tissue cells might be weakened and start to deteriorate. Experts say that after the fruit is harvested, if it stays in the refrigerator for a few weeks before you buy it, vascular browning can occur. This phenomenon becomes visible after you keep the avocado at room temperature for a few days. Don't be hard on yourself, it's not because of you. So, should you eat it or toss it? You can eat the brown dotted avocados, but you may want to taste them first. They might not taste good compared to a regular one. What about the white area under the potato peel? Eat or toss? This area is also like dark bruise marks, but it's not black. If the outer layer of the potato looks normal, that odd-looking white knot is not mold. The moldy potatoes deteriorate. They'll get softer, wrinkled, or squishy. As long as the exterior of this potato appears clean and regular, there's probably no harmful microbial growth inside of it. These strikingly white areas can be shaped due to potatoes being bruised, possibly in the field during the harvesting period. To sum up, you can eat it. There's also an issue of white smears coming out when we slice potatoes. You see the marks on the cutting board? Experts say that some potatoes have a higher level of water and starch content. As a result, your cutting board gets a bit messier than usual. No need to worry about it. I'm going to carry on with another form of potato. Not because I love every version of potato and I can eat it in all meals from breakfast to dinner, but because I want to know, what are those brown spots on potato chips? Should we eat or toss them? Consider these as minor imperfections. They don't affect the safety of the chip. They're there again because of the bruises they get or as a result of frying. Sometimes you see that your garlic is trying to make more garlic out of itself. Yep, it has sprouted. The question is it okay to eat sprouted cloves, or should you toss them? If the green sprout is in the center of the garlic clove, that's fine. Be aware that the taste of the garlic will be stronger than it usually is. It will still be perfectly okay in a cooked meal, since it'll be alongside other ingredients. The taste shouldn't be that harsh. Can we eat an apple with worms? Most people can't even stand the idea of accidentally eating an apple with a worm, but that's a cultural thing. So the answer is yes, we can eat it. After all, worms add a little protein to the fruit. These animals don't carry any harmful parasites. They make their way into the apple. The entrance point of the fruit might have an off flavor since it got sort of rotten in time. Besides the taste, the rotten part is all safe to bite. What might not be so safe is eating the fallen apples though. Those have probably been hanging out on the ground for quite some time. This period might be enough for the harmful bacteria from the soil to sneak into the apple. There were some cases where people experienced health issues by drinking unpasteurized apple juice made from dropped apples. Yeah, the ones that interact with unhealthy bacteria.
Many people try to store different types of food in the fridge, just in case. It seems like the smartest decision to extend a product's lifespan. But it's not that simple. For some foods, the fridge can be harmful. For example, sauces. If the package doesn't say otherwise, it's better to keep them outside the fridge. You can put them in a cupboard that is far from your oven to protect sauces from temperature changes. The worst enemy of coffee beans is moisture. Special oil in coffee beans is responsible for that pleasant and cozy coffee smell. When you place your coffee in the fridge, condensation changes its entire cell structure and makes all the magic disappear. But if your goal is to get off caffeine, maybe it is a good idea to store your beans in the cold. Rumor has it that honey is an immortal food. You can store it almost forever, but make sure to do it properly. Keep honey in a cold and dark place, but don't put it in your fridge. Otherwise, it may crystallize and lose some of its major beneficial properties. Putting tomatoes into the fridge seems pretty harmless, but it's not the best idea. It will make tomatoes lose their delicious flavor because cold air slows down the natural ripening process. Thus, the thin membranes inside of the tomatoes get less juicy. And you don't want your salad to be watery and tasteless, do you? The best way to store tomatoes is in a well-ventilated box or basket at room temperature. If you want to keep sliced bananas from getting brown, use citrus juice. Just drizzle orange or lemon juice over the cut bananas. Unfortunately, this trick only works for a few hours. The perfect way to store your chocolate is inside your stomach. Just kidding. Keep it away from the fridge and store it in a cool, dark place. This way you don't only protect your dessert from your sweet tooth roommates, but also keep its attractive appearance. It's not a good idea to put your chocolate in the fridge because the temperature difference will create some condensed water on the surface of the chocolate bar. And keeping it away from the fridge is safer for your teeth. Chocolate tends to harden at low temperatures, which makes each bite more difficult. Don't keep your hummus at room temperature. It doesn't matter whether it's homemade or pasteurized. In both cases, it's not safe. If the hummus is traditional and doesn't contain any preservatives, its lifespan is up to 1 week. As for unopened supermarket hummus, you can store it in your fridge for about 3 months and for 1 week once you've opened it. Let's say you've just baked the perfect cookies. It's time to put them in a jar or container. Unfortunately, the cookies will eventually lose that precious out-of-the-oven feel and keep getting harder and harder as the days go by. But if you add a slice of bread to that same container, the cookies will keep their soft texture for much longer. That's because cookies will absorb moisture from the bread. People usually wrap cheese in plastic packages, but this solution is far from perfect. Plastic wrap attracts too much moisture, which creates an ecosystem for mold to grow and prosper. If you want to protect your cheese from this bitter scenario, sprinkle it with vinegar, but don't use more than a few drops. Otherwise, it'll ruin the original taste of your cheese. After that step, wrap your cheese tightly in wax paper and put it in the fridge. There are no special rules about eggs. It's safe to store them both inside and outside the fridge, as long as their expiration date is fine. It's important to make sure the temperature is stable and consistent. If your choice is to put eggs in the fridge, don't keep them on the side shelf. To protect them from temperature fluctuations, put the eggs deeper in the fridge. Also, experts don't recommend removing the eggs from their package. These containers are actually meant to extend the lifespan of the eggs. Yes, the temperature is not equal all over your fridge. The shelves on the door are the warmest area, for example. And the closer the shelf is to the freezer, the lower the temperature gets. So, if you want to create perfect food distribution inside your fridge, don't skip the specific storage recommendations that are mentioned on some packages. If you store a loaf of bread in the supermarket package, get ready to see some mold in a couple of days. it's better to keep your bread in a firmly closed box with a little bit of salt. This tip will protect it from the mold. Also, avoid keeping bread in the fridge because cold air will make it stale very quickly. But when you need to save bread for a long time, you can put it in the freezer. This way, it'll stay fresh for up to 6 months. If you want to keep sliced cucumbers from drying out, put them in an airtight container and pour fresh water in it. Don't store them in the fridge for more than a week. As for the whole cucumbers, keep in mind that they rot in the cold air way faster than at room temperature. If you want to keep them fresh for as long as possible, store them outside the fridge. Avocado is a tricky fruit with tricky storage rules. If your avocado is hard and not fully ripe yet, keep it away from the fridge because cold air will slow down the ripening process. Bananas emit high levels of ethylene, which helps avocados ripen faster. So, if you want to accelerate the process, put it in a bag with 1 or several bananas. At the same time, if your avocado is soft and ripe, storing it in the fridge will keep it from going bad. Some people prefer wrapping cut avocado in plastic wrap together with a slice of onion. This tip helps the fruit to stay fresh longer. Another way is to cover it with olive oil. Keep in mind that cut avocado can be stored in the fridge for no longer than 3 days. Keep your onions and garlic away from the fridge. Low temperatures will cause mold way faster. If you want to keep them fresh for a long time, store them in a cool, dry place. For example, in the kitchen cupboard. And if you don't mind some country house style in your kitchen, tie the onions to one another and keep them hanging. Also, avoid storing oranges and other citrus fruits in the fridge. Unfortunately, low temperatures make these fruits less tasty and less beneficial for your health. You can store them in a fruit bowl, on a shelf, or kitchen table. Don't worry, this won't speed up their rotting. Just like many other vegetables, eggplants don't like low temperatures. In the fridge, they get soft and lose their good qualities way faster. Keep these veggies away from direct sunlight in some dry space at room temperature. If you've sliced an apple, but you don't want to eat it right away, here's a tip. Put a rubber band around the slices to hold them together. It'll keep the apple from turning brown. This fruit will stay fresh and crispy for as long as a whole month when stored in a moisture-resistant bag in a fridge. It's advised to avoid washing apples before storing them, as it might cause spoilage. Never put olive oil inside your fridge. If you've made this mistake before, you've probably noticed those weird white pieces inside the oil. Don't worry, it's not toxic. In fact, low temperatures in the fridge cause water condensation, which looks like unpleasant impurities. It's better to keep your olive oil at room temperature and far from direct sunlight. Watermelons and other melons, kept at room temperature, contain more beneficial nutrients and antioxidants compared to those kept in the fridge. But once you cut your watermelon, it's better to store it in the fridge. Use plastic wrap to cover the cut side tightly and replace it each time you cut your watermelon. Also, you can cut your melon or watermelon in smaller slices and store them in an airtight container in your fridge for up to 1 week. Freezing ginger will allow you to keep it fresh for 2 to 9 months and maintain its quality. You can also grate it in advance so you can take 1 spoonful at a time. This will save you time, especially on those busy days when you need to prepare something fast.
So you're watching your favorite cooking show when suddenly the star chef adds a pinch of salt to some jam that's supposed to go into a dessert. You pick up the phone to call and complain, but right then the chef explains. It turns out that adding salt to fruit is a common thing in different cuisines across the world. Like in Mexico, they like to spice up mango and citrus fruits with salt and chili powder. You can try mango with a shrimp taste in the Philippines and salted watermelon in the southern states. So, how does it work? Well, let's say you're eating a raw mango sprinkled with salt. With the first bite, you notice the salty flavor, and the sweet fruity taste is then slightly delayed. It feels as juicy and amazing as ever. It's most likely because salt affects the sweet taste receptor for sugar, and then really magic happens on a molecular level. One study even found that we have more sugar detectors in our taste cells than scientists previously thought. One of those detectors must direct sugar to a sweet taste cell when it gets in contact with salt. You can try and put salt on any fruit you like, but the effect will be different. Salt can make sweeter fruits like cherries and strawberries even sweeter and balance the flavor of grapefruit, pineapple, and watermelon. Just take a ripe fruit and slice it the regular way and sprinkle the pieces with salt. Large flaked sea salt might taste more intense, plus it looks more beautiful. After 10 minutes, your gourmet dessert will be ready. So, you need to chop up a heap of iceberg lettuce, but that tough core in the middle doesn't want to leave. Just hold the lettuce head in both hands with the core end down and slam it against a cutting board or some other solid surface, not your brother. Now you should be able to pull the core right out of the bottom and slice the rest of the lettuce without a problem. The next time you take butter out of the fridge and struggle to spread it because, it's hard as a rock, reach for your grater. With its help, you'll easily flake off tiny pieces of butter that will melt instantly on a warm toast. You can also spread them much easier on cold bread without putting your sandwich in the microwave or waiting for a while to soften the butter. Professional bakers approve of this tip and have been using it for a long time. When you're frying something, you first heat the pan and then put the food on it, right? Well, this logic won't work if you want to make your bacon crispy. On a hot pan, the meat will cook before the fat can melt out of it. Your bacon will be too fatty and rubbery. So you gotta lay the strips on a cold pan and then turn on medium-low heat. The fat will render out of the meat, and the final result will be super yummy and crispy. Have you ever tried boiling pasta in a frying pan? I know it sounds a bit weird, but it can actually help you save a lot of time, water, and energy. Instead of filling a huge pot with water and waiting for it to boil, put your pasta in a frying pan and cover it with cold water and add some salt to it. Your pasta will be cooking while the water is getting to the boiling point, so it'll be ready much faster than normal. And the water that's left in the pan will make an excellent base for a sauce because it's filled with starch. Mix it with pesto, tomato sauce, and garlic butter. It tastes like it's straight out of a gourmet restaurant. Now, the secret to cooking the most delicious and fluffy mashed potatoes is to dry them before you mash them. After boiling, you can either put them in a pot and leave them over low heat on the stovetop, or keep them in a baking sheet in a low oven. Then add melted butter that will coat the starch in the potatoes, and only then slowly add milk. Now your mashed potatoes will have the best possible structure and flavor. If you've shed enough tears over onions when trying to slice them, this one is a must-try for you. Peel the onions, cut them in half, and leave them in a fridge in a bowl of iced water for half an hour before you start cooking. The reason behind your tears is the sulfur that onions take from the soil while growing up. When you damage its cells, the acids contact the enzymes that start a whole bunch of reactions and release a chemical that makes your eyes water. Freezing the onion can weaken that chemical. To minimize it even more, only use a sharp knife to slice onions. This way, you'll do less damage to its cells. It's much easier to peel an avocado if you freeze it first. Just put it in the fridge as it is, give it some time, and then take it out and hold it under warm running water. Now you can peel it easily after you make a couple of crisscross incisions. The best way to keep herbs fresh and juicy is to store them like flowers. If you don't have the right size vase or vase, take a mason jar or a water glass and fill it with an inch of water. Now put the herbs inside as you would do to your roses. For parsley and cilantro, cover the jar with a plastic bag and store the bouquet in the fridge. Basil loves sunlight, so you better leave it uncovered on the counter. If you've made too much sauce or have some leftovers in a can that doesn't seem to be enough for anything, you can save it from the trash can. Pour the sauce into an ice cube tray and keep it in the freezer. Now, if you need to spice up a meal, you can always add a couple of sauce cubes to it. Plus, as a bonus, which is redundant, the sauce will last longer this way than it would in the fridge. Do your meatballs always turn out to be perfectly the same shape and size? Then skip this one. But if you're like me, just use an ice cream scoop to get the right amount of your minced meat mix. Try saying that 5 times. The balls will be the ideal shape and your fingers won't get sticky. The easiest and probably the most beautiful way to slice a mango is to turn it into a hedgehog. Wash the mango under running water. Don't squeeze it while doing it. Now put it straight up on a cutting board and cut it into 3 pieces from the top downwards. Just leave that flat pit in the middle piece. There isn't much you can do with it anyway. Now your mango will have 2 cute cheeks. I mean, its fattest parts. Next, make crosswise and lengthwise cut in the mango cheeks. Leave some even distance between the incisions and don't go all the way through the skin. Now press on the back side of the mango until the flesh pokes out. Does it look like something to you? Yep, a hedgehog. Hence the name of this slicing method. The final step will be to slice off the mango cubes into a bowl. Then eat. Now this one has all the potential to become your new breakfast favorite. You can cook an omelet in a mug. Take a large microwave-safe mug and coat the inside of it with olive oil or spray it with cooking spray. Add 2 eggs and 1 tablespoon of milk and mix them with a fork. Now add salt and pepper and any cheese, veggies, and herbs you like. Put it in the microwave on high for 30 seconds. Take it out, stir it with a fork, and then put it back for another 30 seconds. And voila! Your breakfast is served. Oh, be sure to use another mug for your coffee. Otherwise, you get eggs in your coffee, and nobody has a recipe for that.
Everyone has their own morning rituals to cheer the body up after sleep. Apart from exercising and hot showers, the first food that you put into your hungry tummy can define the rest of the day. That's why it's good to know which foods are just not meant to be eaten on an empty stomach. Well, at least we have bananas. This fruit is a great choice for a lazy breakfast, right? Wrong! No matter how fresh and healthy it is, raw bananas can bring chaos to your stomach if you eat them at the wrong time. This fruit is rich in magnesium, which may lead to digestive issues. Also, in some cases, it can cause blood pressure fluctuations. But if you're still a dedicated banana eater, try mixing it with oatmeal. It creates a lining in the stomach that prevents irritation caused by the naturally produced hydrochloric acid. Bananas go well with other healthy foods like porridge, peanut butter, dried fruits, or nuts for eating early in the morning. What could be better than a fresh, crispy croissant for breakfast? Many things, actually. Cakes, pastries, pizza, and other bakeries usually contain yeast, which can harm the stomach lining if eaten on an empty stomach. Also, bakery products may cause flatulence, so it's not the best food you want to eat first thing in the morning. But you can replace the regular white yeast bakery with sourdough whole grain bread. In fact, it's one of the best food choices right after waking up. This bread is rich in carbohydrates that are very important for a balanced diet and keeping your gut bacteria happy. A glass of fresh citrus juice looks very Instagram-friendly when standing on a fancy breakfast tray. But unfortunately, things don't look so glamorous inside your stomach. Fruit smoothies and juices are too rich in fructose, which may shock and overburden your sleepy pancreas and liver. Although they are great any time of the day, in the morning, citrus fruits should be consumed after eating something else. Otherwise, they may cause great harm to the body. The high content of fructose and fiber can make your metabolism work lazier during the day. And also, experts don't recommend eating more than 2 oranges per day to avoid hurricanes in your tummy. If you can't imagine your morning without fruits, go for papaya or watermelon. They can help flush toxins out of your body and make you feel lighter during the day. Fresh salads are very good in most cases, but still, experts advised against eating raw vegetables on an empty stomach. After a long hour fasting, your tummy may find it too hard to digest the coarse fibers. So, if you don't want to experience pain and discomfort, keep your salad for later hours. Let's talk about the hot water in the morning trend. You've probably seen a bulk of its variations. Bloggers suggest mixing the water with all sorts of things, from lemon juice and chia seeds to baking soda. Of course, each of these magic potions requires separate research and scientific approval. But most experts agree that 1 glass of pure lukewarm water in the morning is a great tool to inspire your bowel movement and prepare it for the day. On the other hand, it's not advised to drink cold beverages if your stomach is empty because they can damage the mucous membrane. This can make your digestive system work lazier, or in some cases, cause discomfort and an upset stomach. When it comes to your morning coffee, the rule is simple. If you want to stay healthy, never drink coffee on an empty stomach. When you do so, it stimulates the secretion of hydrochloric acid, which is harmful to your digestive system. Not only can it provoke gastritis from time to time, but also develop many health issues in the long term. Also, coffee boosts the level of cortisol, the hormone which controls our biological clock. It happens very quickly, and the body needs to make an extra effort to balance the things back to a normal state. That's why experts recommend drinking coffee an hour after waking up, but you should eat something beforehand. Even a tiny slice of bread will be fine. If you like eating yogurt with granola or any other fermented milk products for breakfast, make sure to eat something safe before them. Ideally, you have to wait about an hour. Otherwise, dairy products can damage the good bacteria in your stomach and cause the effect opposite to what they're actually made for. But this recommendation doesn't apply to cheeses. If you want your digestive system to thank you, go for feta or cottage cheese. These good fats are just perfect for the morning. Goat cheese is also a nice idea. It's softer and tangier than most cow cheeses. And it also tends to be slightly higher in fat and minerals and lower in lactose. Many people eat chocolate or protein bars for breakfast, but in fact, processed sugar is the champion among the worst breakfast choices. Any high-sugar food and drink should be avoided just after waking up in the morning. But don't rush off to cut off the chocolate completely. It can help chase away the morning gloom and improve your mood during the day. Chocolate can promote positive feelings because it stimulates the production of hormones responsible for our good mood. That's why a reasonable amount of high-quality chocolate after breakfast can be beneficial for your well-being and help you switch to work mode. Keep in mind that darker chocolate contains more caffeine, while white chocolate has none. So, if you want to stay alert, go for 70% dark chocolate. Not only does it help you stay wakeful, but it's also a treasury of useful components like calcium, copper, potassium, antioxidants, and magnesium. Chili with jalapenos might taste delicious, but it's not the best choice for breakfast. Here's why. When you eat spicy food on an empty stomach, it irritates your vulnerable lining and makes your belly very unhappy. So, if you don't want to risk suffering from an irritated stomach throughout the day, it makes sense to keep the chili for dinner. It may seem like all foods are bad on an empty stomach, but that's not the case. In fact, we have plenty of safe and healthy breakfast options that will help improve the functioning of your body. Take nuts, for example. These tiny power banks are rich in vitamins, minerals, proteins, and good omega-3 fatty acids. So eating them first in the morning can be very nutritious. They'll keep you feeling energized during the day and help fight overeating habits. Also, nut consumption can help maintain the pH balance in the stomach. But, of course, moderation is crucial because nuts are very fatty. Experts advise eating just 1 handful per day, which is approximately 2 tablespoons. Some recommend soaking nuts in water overnight to make them even more beneficial and easier to digest. The same technique works for dates, raisins, and other dried fruits and berries. If you're both worried about your weight and health, the perfect choice for breakfast is eggs. They can give a feeling of fullness without heaviness, which helps to control appetite during the day. They're also rich in proteins and low in calories. Just a couple of tablespoons of wheat germs before breakfast will provide you with a bunch of vitamins and folic acid. This superfood contains dietary fiber that helps your digestive system work smoothly. It's also reported to have some anti-aging properties. Here's another well-known superfood that can give you both a good mood and better digestion: chia seeds. They're even more beneficial when consumed on an empty stomach. It's up to you whether to take them directly or along with water. When you consume honey after waking up, it can gently add some inspiration to a lazy bowel. Also, honey can boost the production of serotonin to help you feel good during the day. But first, make sure you're not allergic to honey.
A beverage as black as ink, useful against numerous health conditions. It's made of water and the fruit from a bush called bunu.
You must have guessed. It's a description of coffee. This is how coffee was described by a German physician who had a 10-year trip to the Near East back in the 16th century. Today, you don't have to venture into the unknown to get a cup of precious liquid. You can easily make it at home or visit the closest coffee shop. As of 2023, in the US alone, there are over 72,000 coffee shops. Imagine the whole world. When you think of coffee, what's the first country that comes to your mind? Italy? Maybe France? But here's the kicker. Actually, Finland is the coffeeiest country in the world. Just picture it. An adult Finn consumes up to 27.5 pounds of coffee per year, while an American only consumes about 11 pounds. Norway proudly takes second place, and Denmark closes the top 3. Italy and France aren't even in the top 10. And by the way, each day, people on our planet drink approximately 1.6 billion cups of coffee. If you're planning to hit some longevity records, coffee may come in handy. There's been research conducted by Harvard Health Publishing stating that those who drink 3 to 4 cups of coffee per day are more likely to have a longer lifespan. Sounds cool, but it's probably not the best option. One of the world's most famous supercentenarians, Jeanne Calment, acknowledged that she would drink coffee with milk for breakfast. And she lived an incredibly long life of 122 years. Not only do people prove that coffee helps with longevity, but cats can also prove it. This is Cream Puff from Texas. It's the cat that lived for 38 years. Jake Perry, Cream Puff's owner, shared some details about his pet's diet. Cream Puff would typically eat dry cat food, eggs, turkey bacon. Alright, nothing special here. But the cat was a big fan of coffee too. Cream Puff preferred coffee with cream. Now, here's a question for you. What color is your coffee mug? Thing is, it matters a lot what you drink from. There are certain colors, for example, lead-based glaze that can release toxic substances in your drink. Mugs glazed with red and orange are most likely to contain lead. So, if you want to play it safe, opt for mugs made of glass, ceramic, or stainless steel. Also, mugs made of plastic or aluminum aren't safe either, as they may release unwanted substances, just like glazed mugs. But the color matters for psychological reasons too. There's been an experiment concerning coffee perception based on the mug color. So, it turns out that if we drink coffee from a white mug, it may seem less sweet than if we drink it from a blue or transparent one. Coffee even played an important role in major sports events. Back in 1932, Brazilian athletes couldn't afford a trip to LA to participate in the Olympic Games. However, a solution was found. The authorities loaded the athletes onto a ship full of coffee. That coffee was sold on the way, so it helped finance their trip. Coffee is also the key to a happy family life, or at least it used to be. In the 15th century in Mesopotamia, coffee was pretty important when it came to marriage. Men would choose their future wives based on how well they could make coffee. Luckily, we have coffee machines for that today, so we choose partners based on their personalities. And in Constantinople, a wife could file for divorce in case her hubby did not provide her with enough coffee. According to industry standards, you need around 56 coffee beans to make a single shot of coffee. Beethoven, yes, I'm talking about one of the main hitmakers of all time, would count 60 beans precisely to brew his morning coffee. I guess it was more of a ritual than a particular recipe. Hey, do you have any rituals for your morning, Joe? Another hitmaker, Johann Sebastian Bach, even dedicated a cantata to coffee, which he called Coffee Cantata. Pretty straightforward, huh? The cantata tells about coffee dependence. Even though black coffee is supposedly the most common type out there, pretty much everyone tried cappuccino at least once. By the way, it got its name because of the final color the drink has. It's a soft brownish shade, very much similar to the color of the capuchin robe. Plus, the robe has a hood, and the word hood translates to Italian as cappuccio. Now the name finally makes sense. Those who don't like to spend time brewing coffee often opt for the instant variety. Let's say happy birthday to instant coffee. It's soon to turn 116 years old. It was invented in 1907, and up until the 1970s, many consumers would criticize it for having an inferior taste. However, in the 1970s, the technology changed, and the manufacturers claimed it tasted almost like freshly brewed coffee. Also, instant coffee created another popular thing: coffee vending machines. The first prototype was invented back in 1947, and they've been with us ever since the 1950s. There are also some products you don't really want to combine coffee with. Number 1. Meat. The logic is simple. Coffee can absorb zinc in the body. Therefore, it's not the best choice to have coffee after grabbing something that contains zinc. I'm talking about red meat, oysters, and beans. Number 2. Fried food. Such dishes tend to contain a lot of so-called bad fats. And once you combine them with caffeine, this mix increases the cholesterol levels in your body. Number 3 may come as a surprise, but still, coffee and milk aren't the best match. Coffee doesn't let the calcium absorb, so technically, you just don't get many nutrients from the milk. Japan seems like the perfect place for those who love coffee. I mean, do you know any other place where you can literally bathe in coffee? Me neither. So this hot springs spa and water amusement park near Tokyo got famous for its extraordinary hot tubs. There are 26 baths in total, and they're filled with coffee, green tea, and many other drinks. Only fresh ingredients are used, and the baths get refilled every day. So to make a coffee tub, they brew coffee beans with water from natural hot springs. By the way, the price is pretty reasonable. An adult ticket costs about $36. If you tried to make a coffee tub yourself, you'd probably spend more. Time to debunk another myth. Decaf coffee does have caffeine. A middle-sized decaf drink has about 7 milligrams of caffeine, while regular coffee has about 7. Yep, 10 times less, but it's enough to disrupt your sleep. As for classic coffee, remember that caffeine has a 6-hour half-life, so it takes about 12 hours to fully eliminate it from your body. Coffee is a no-go both before you go to sleep and right after you wake up. Cortisol, the stress hormone, is not only responsible for stress, but for sleep cycles too. It spikes between 8 a.m. and 9 a.m., so a cup of coffee only adds to anxiety in the morning. Grab it when the cortisol is at its lowest. It also spikes between noon and 1 p.m., and between 5:30 and 6:30 p.m. No coffee at this time. Many people believe coffee is not the healthiest drink, opting for good quality water or other beverages. Still, if you just can't say no to your guilty pleasure, try buying a thermocup and brewing coffee at home. You'll save money and nature, since the disposable coffee cups aren't recyclable, and it takes at least 20 years for them to decompose. A pop-in in a coffee shop may be your daily ritual, but have you ever counted how much you spend on your morning habit? Millennials spend over $2,000 a year on coffee, investing sometimes more than they do in their retirement.
That's it for today. So hey, if you pacified your curiosity, then give the video a like and share it with your friends. Or if you want more, just click on these videos